Alright, this is Mr. Gillum, and today I'm going to introduce you to 3D figures. So there's three big things about what we're going to call prisms that you need to know about. Alright, a prism, if it's actually a prism, has one pair of congruent parallel bases. Alright, one pair of congruent parallel bases, or two congruent parallel bases. So I have these three prisms here. And it can be confusing knowing what the base is that I'm talking about, because it's sitting flat on the bottom here. It looks like a rectangle, but really the bases are the two that are straight across from each other that are exactly the same. So the two bases that are exactly equal are these pentagons. So this would be a pentagonal prism. Again, this is sitting on what's a rectangle, but that's not the base. The base is actually a triangle because it has a triangle straight across from it. Okay, and here we have a rectangular prism, and there is a lot of different pairs of congruent bases, but it doesn't matter because all of them are rectangles on every side. Okay, so you can consider any part of it to be the base. So it has two congruent parallel bases. All right, it's not a rectangle because there's a bunch of rectangles around the outside. Speaking of that, the name for the shapes that are around the outside are the lateral shapes, the lateral faces. Okay, so in this first prism here, we have a pentagon, a five-sided figure, and across from it is another five-sided figure. The lateral bases are what these rectangles are called. Okay, the lateral bases of this triangular prism are these rectangles. There's a rectangle there, a rectangle behind, and a rectangle on the bottom. Those are called lateral faces. Okay. When we're classifying the prism, it has to do only with what the base is. Okay, so what the two congruent ones are. So like I said, this is a pentagonal prism, even though it's not sitting flat on the pentagon itself. That is the base, the pentagon itself. Okay. On this one it's triangular, and on this one it's rectangular, no matter how you sit it. There's a special type of prism called a right prism. And in order for a prism to be a right prism, it has to have rectangles as its lateral faces. So in this case, I have rectangles along the side of my pentagonal prism. Now in this case, my triangular prism has rectangular lateral faces. And on this rectangular prism, I also have rectangles for my lateral faces. So if that is the case, we know that it is a right prism, a special classified prism. Okay. There's also something called pyramids. Okay, and they're three-dimensional as well, and they have one base that's a polygon and three or more faces that meet a point called the vertex. So that's a really confusing way to say the point of the pyramid is called the vertex. Okay, it's called the vertex. Fancy word for the point of the pyramid. All right, pyramids get their name from the shape of the base. And so as you can see on these two triangles, these two pyramids on the edges, they have rectangles for bases. So we would call those rectangular pyramids, or box pyramids, sometimes they're called rectangular pyramids. Unfortunately, this one does not have a rectangle, it has a triangle. Okay, and so we would call this a triangular pyramid because its base, its one flat side across from the vertex, is a triangle. So you may have learned about this in previous classes, or maybe not, but none of these are right prisms because the lateral faces in this one are triangles. You can see the triangles on the side. And on this one, they're also triangles, and on this one, they're also triangles. So in order for it to be a right prism, it would have to have rectangles on the side. In a pyramid, that just doesn't happen, so we don't call it a right prism. In fact, we don't call it a prism at all. We call it a pyramid. Okay, so we have prisms, and we have pyramids. A prism's base is the one that is parallel or opposite to the exact same thing, not the one that it's sitting on. All right, and that's all the important stuff you really need to know about prisms and pyramids for today.